He said it's not a song, it's a way of life. It's a forever thing, it's a message. He said you can say that water is life. You can sing it again and again, but will they listen? Are we gonna stand by these words? Are we gonna find a way to change the way we're living Mother Earth? She feels everything and it hurts. Like the moon, like the body of a woman, she is changing. Can we return to the times when water was alive? When we prayed at her edge and gave thanks for this life? When the water fell from the sky and we drank from her bosom? When the water fell from our eyes and the water fell from our wombs? When it rose up to the surface and we knew every spring? No fear or competition, just a relative to a face. We are people of the sun, we are people of the water. We will celebrate our sons, we will celebrate our daughters. Give them ceremony so when the drought comes they'll be ready. Will the next war be for water? All our solutions are part of the problem, can't win war with war. There is more than one creation story. Worlds have died and worlds have been reborn before. When you touch the water, you touch the world. From Taos peaks to Gulf streams, the memories they hold. We sell her by the acre foot and treat her as our captive. The rivers are undrinkable while the aquifer's extracted. Our food will need water to grow, but do you have to take it all? We try to hold her and control her as we watch our empire fall. He said it's not a song, it's a way of life. It's a forever thing, it's a message. He said you can say that water is life. You can sing it again and again, but can you live it?
Watching, hoping, praying that this time it becomes fallen, as done by their grandmothers, grandfathers, long ago, when they spoke with animals, their smoke still floating, touching the morning prayers. Grandfathers, grandmothers, sons and daughters, me, us, the mountains and animals, covered with the morning pollen.
Welcome, 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 everybody. My name is Deborah Reenstra. I serve on the Third Act Faith Coordinating Committee, and we are very, very glad to have you join us tonight, whether you're joining right now live or maybe later you'll be watching this recording. Tonight, we are very excited to introduce to you Randy Woodley, our guest for the night. And I will introduce him, and then we're going to turn it over to Martin Wagner for a little bit of a centering exercise. While we're getting ready for that, if you want to continue telling us about the cold weather where you are, that's great. It's a little bit cathartic to just tell other people what you're dealing with. And then later on tonight, we'll have an opportunity for questions and a discussion with Randy, and we'll just invite you to put questions in the chat when that time comes. So I'm going to introduce Randy now, and then I'll turn it over to Martin for a centering exercise. Randy Woodley is a scholar, writer, farmer, educator, elder, and wisdom keeper. He and his wife Edith are founders of Eloheh Indigenous Center for Earth Justice, which is a 10-acre farm retreat in Yamhill, Oregon. People can go there to reconnect with land, to recover Indigenous farming practices, and learn the Harmony Way through embodied experience. Friendship is also a really crucial theme for the Eloheh Center, which is why we've asked Randy to be here tonight as part of our How Can Interfaith Friendships Help Us in Our Fight for Climate Healing and Democracy Healing. Randy's understanding of Indigenous traditions draws from his own Cherokee heritage, as well as his extensive study of North American Native traditions through his PhD work and his decades of teaching and writing. I think of Randy these days as a prophet, a prophetic figure. I've been reading his Substack. I highly recommend it. He tells it like it is. He writes about eco-justice, racial diversity, racial justice, and about living in harmony with the whole community of creation, including each other. So I highly recommend his current 15-part Substack series on healing democracy. I'm going to turn it over now to Martin, who's going to lead us in a centering exercise.
Thank you, Deborah, and hi, everyone. I'm Martin Wagner. I'm also a member of the coordinating committee for Third Act Faith, and I am really excited that Randy is here. I'm going to be having a conversation with Randy for a little bit after we do the centering exercise, and then you all will have an opportunity to ask questions. So I wanted to let you know that while we're having this conversation, please feel free to put questions that come up for you in the chat, and we have someone who will filter those and raise them, and then if we run out of those, we'll also open it up for just questions live. So when I asked Randy if he had some suggestions about how we might ground ourselves and center ourselves to begin, he suggested that I look at this wonderful book that he wrote called Becoming Rooted: 100 Days of Reconnecting with Sacred Earth, and that I might find something that I would want to read here. And the fact is, I found about 100 little essays that I would want to read, but I've chosen one. And I want to suggest that we listen to this in the form of Lectio Divina, sacred reading, in that we listen as much with our bodies and our hearts as with our minds, that we let these words sink in more deeply, and perhaps notice if there are words or phrases that call to you. And at the end, maybe you can put those in the chat. So just briefly, maybe take a breath, feel your body, let yourself arrive here. Give yourself the gift of these moments and this hour of connection. And then join me in listening to this piece of writing called Whole Reality. It begins with a quote from Saint Bernard de Clairvaux. "You will find something greater in woods than in books. Trees and stones will teach you what you can never learn from masters." We've all heard the term rose-colored glasses, which means seeing the world as less harsh than it really is. These colored glasses are handed down from generation to generation. Western worldviews hold in common one particular tint, namely the foundational influence of Platonic dualism, named after the philosopher Plato and handed down from the Greeks. This dualism places more importance on abstract areas of life like our spirit, our soul, or our mind, and less importance on physical areas like the earth or our bodies. You may have heard the saying that someone is so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. The problem with dualistic thinking is that it separates areas into two, as if reality is no longer whole. Believe it or not, a whole host of other problems flow from dualism. such as hierarchy, over-categorizing, individualism, patriarchy, racism, religious intolerance, greed, and thinking that says humanity is over nature. The influence of dualism empowers all these other concerns. Maybe the best way to combat a bad worldview is to present a better one. Maybe it's enough to know that the Western worldview has been awfully destructive over the last few millennia, and now it is dragging down the whole planet to the point of us all wondering if we will survive the future. On the other hand, indigenous worldviews understand all of life as both physical and spiritual, together and separable and inseparable. What difference would it make if we viewed all of life as a whole? What if we understood the earth itself as our primary spiritual teacher? Then nothing would be without spirit in our understanding. Everything would be understood as related. All life would be sacred. If this were the case, might we be living in a different world today? We have all been influenced by the sterile and often lifeless Western worldview, thinking certain things are objects without life or spirit. We are all guilty of understanding certain species in nature as being less important than another, especially less important than us. We have classified and condemned some animals as varmints and some plants as weeds, and yet each has an important role to play in our world. Our worldviews can be changed if we really work on them. And then Randy offers a suggestion. What processes or experiences can you use to challenge your own Western worldview and begin to view life as a whole? So if you want to drop a word or phrase that stuck with you or stuck out for you in this into the chat, please do. And I am really excited to welcome Randy and to have this conversation with him. And Randy, by way of starting, one of the phrases that stuck out for me that really grabbed me in that reading was where you wrote, maybe the best way to combat a bad worldview is to present a better one. Indigenous worldviews understand all of life as both physical and spiritual, together and inseparable. So I wonder, as we start, if you would tell us a little bit about your center, the Eloheh Indigenous Center for Earth Justice, that you and your wife Edith co-sustain, and how it represents your effort to present a better worldview.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. So in 1999, I had a dream, and it was sort of one of those vision dreams, if you will. We had been serving Native people in a lot of different ways, after school tutoring, houseless helps and ministry, classes for unwed mothers, parenting classes, baby needs closets, Indian youth culture camps, just a lot of different things. But because there's so many needs in our community, we always ask the question, how do we move to the point of empowerment of our own people? And we sort of came upon the vision of decolonizing and indigenizing. And then when I had this dream, it sort of all clicked together, and I realized that this is the place to do it. This is the way to empower people. And then along the way, we were like, oh, non-Native people need to be decolonized and indigenized also. And so it opened up a whole different world to us than what we had suspected. We this is actually Eloheh 3.0. We began with 50 acres in Kentucky. We lost that due to violent pressure from a white nationalist group and a 50 caliber machine gun. Lost everything, moved to Oregon, bought a small farm when I was doing a part-time teaching gig as a professor at Portland Seminary. And then that was 3.5 acres, but it was just a farm. We couldn't do much more. And then finally, the opportunity came to buy this 10 acres here. So that was 5.5 years ago. And so we have groups and we have visitors and different people, volunteers and others who come and we sit and talk and around the fire, under the oak tree. Um, and it's not just Edith and I for our schools. It's also a Hawaiian elder and a Lakota elder, the North Three Stars, and Jim Sakura. And the four of us sort of take turns in some things we do together, and we talk and we share our stories and we hear their stories. And um, yeah, I don't know what really is the key, but people leave differently. I think it's being on the land. I think it's the combination of the spirituality of the land and the food that we grow and understanding a story better and kind of breaking down the dualism um, and whatever the secret is, which I still haven't quite figured out. Somebody says just hospitality, that's the secret, but it seems to be working. So um, I used to think a long time ago when I was a young person, um, become famous and get before as many people as you can, tens of thousands, and you would change the world. But I realized along the way that actually how you change the world is just create a good model and show people, and then they take it home with them and start practicing parts of that
And
themselves.
what does Eloheh mean, and why did you name your center that?
Yeah, so Eloheh is a Cherokee word. It basically means the like if you're familiar with the sort of big picture shalom idea from the Christian Bible and the Jewish Bible, shalom, tikkun, everything related to that. That's sort of what Eloheh is. It's everything is in harmony. The earth is producing what it should. People have remedies when they have conflict. It's not utopia, right? It's just that we know how to remedy them in peace. Um, that nobody's hungry. Nobody's at war. Those kinds of things. It's basically our idea of harmony. And what I found out in my PhD dissertation work was that I queried 45 tribes and a dozen elders and deep conversations with them. And every single one of those across every region of the United States and Canada had a similar construct. And so, and then I realized that a lot of people all around the world, also a lot of indigenous people, Maoris from New Zealand and Aboriginals from Australia and Zulu from South Africa and Maasai and Sami from the Scandinavian places. We all have these original instructions how to live in peace and harmony with each other. Um, so, um, so this is not a new concept. This is actually probably what I would call original instructions. These are some of the oldest things that people have figured out how to live together on Earth with human beings and the whole community of creation.
That's beautiful. I would love to dig into that a little bit. And to get there, I want to recommend, as Deborah did, your Substack to all the folks here, that your Substack writing is really wonderful and provocative and thought-provoking. And you have one series of posts that you're calling Make Democracy Great Again, which I'm enjoying. And in one of those posts, you said that the solutions to the United States' current ills exist, and in your words, that our indigenous ancestors practiced those solutions for millennia right here on Turtle Island. So I'm wondering if you can describe some of the indigenous practices that would solve our current ills.
Yeah. So when I say make democracy great again, I'm not trying to get back to an American idea. I'm trying to get back to a Native American idea. That's when it was true democracy, and democracy was great. There was more diversity before 1491 on Turtle Island than there has been ever since. And never a religious war, by the way. There were wars, but and they were a little different, but they were never fighting over someone making someone else believe what they wanted them to believe. Yeah, so I guess we're thinking like there was no houselessness, there was holistic healing. Everybody's voice was heard, so consensus things were done. Now, there are also always exceptions, sort of, uh, outliers, but by and large, so all of these kinds of, hang on.
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, so if we look at all of our different problems, healthcare, houselessness, the problem with voting and politics, and the fact that someone has to be rich in order to run for an office, and all those kinds of things, we worked all that stuff out before this place became the United States of America. And so what I'm trying to do is recommend that there's a way to synthesize those ideas into our current system and make it great again. Yeah.
What would be a first step or a step in beginning to synthesize them?
Well, I think there's a lot of first steps in each area because everything is so segmented now. You have to start in housing with housing. You have to start in healthcare with healthcare. I don't think you can just sort of wave a magic wand and say, this is how everything gets better. But I think there's a lot of education is another one. You can start working within those things and then hopefully build a whole.
So as we're doing that, and Third Act is an organization of activists. I'm wondering if you can talk about how you see activism based on an indigenous worldview differing from activism that is embedded in an empire or a colonialist worldview.
That's a really good question. Yeah, so let's just take the thing that we're all concerned about, which is the earth, what I call the whole community of creation. So even good activists, and they want to do good things for the earth. They want to stop the harm. They want to make it better. But I think it's sometimes different than an indigenous worldview, which is, these are my relatives. We're related to these things. They are part of me. I'm part of them. I guess I'll give you one example. I was in Kentucky. I went with a bunch of friends, and we were protesting mountaintop removal, right? And everybody was, protesting and loud and signs and, and I just felt like that's not where I was at. And I found myself thinking about because these were actual mountains in our Kituwa lands, our Cherokee lands. I just thought, what would my ancestors think about this? They couldn't imagine that you could remove a whole mountaintop. And I found myself going over to the car, leaning on the car. Next thing you know, I was sobbing and crying of what was being done to my relatives and what had been there for so many years. And I'm not saying that they weren't sad or anything else, but I think it was just a different way of feeling about it. I don't know how to explain that, but I think, someone, we talk a lot about philosophy and theology, and I have a good friend, one of our elders, Lenore Three Stars. I think she says it best. She says, if she's talking about theology, and she said, if your theology doesn't make you a better relative, then you need a new theology. And I think that's the key, is that we have to begin to see that everything we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. Everything, when we hurt species, we're hurting ourselves. We're hurting our relative. And I think the way that you get there in the West is, and of course, this is what we do basically is in our education component is we break down the Platonic dualism so that people understand, oh, I've been captive to this thing that has made me think of the earth and the community of creation as objects. And the anthropomorphism, the fact that I'm better than them or I'm higher than them, but we're not. We are just part of it. We all have different functions.
Do you have a suggestion for those of us deeply embedded in the Western dualism for how we can begin to build that sense of connection? I mean, in addition, of course, to reading one of your Becoming Rooted essays every morning, I'm just wondering, is it enough to just think it, just to realize that we are connected, or is there something else we can do?
Yeah, you can't think your way out of this. I mean, it's a good start. But because thinking is in a way, I don't want to take this too far, but thinking is how we got in this mess. Plato said it's what you think that's reality, not what is actually physical. That's sort of a lower plane of reality. The we're privileging the ethereal, the material, etc., as a Platonic dualism, and so that is embedded in all of our systems. And so it's our worldview. It's the water that we swim in. We can't get out of it unless we get out of it. And the way to get out of it is, yes, educate ourselves, all of that. And the reason I have an activity at the end of every one of those 100 essays, short essays, is because I want people to go outside and do what we've been talking about. And so I have a new book coming out July 14th this year. It's called How Western Christianity Got It Wrong. And I take apart the whole system, right, of what happened in the West. And Christianity has had a big influence on this dualism. It's been one of the driving forces of it, in fact. So there's the sort of intellectual side. But the other way is to just be around people who don't have that worldview and be in their context. So I've seen people literally come in the sweat lodge with me and change their whole life and their whole worldview because they've never experienced all of that together, the emotion, the spirit, the learning, the listening, the feeling in their body going through these things all together. And it literally changed their whole life. Now, I don't know what, I guess we all can't just jump in a sweat lodge, but maybe you can start going and being around people who have lived in a different worldview up to this point. We're all affected by it to a degree, right? But there are still lots of people out there who aren't. And to be around that and to begin to understand like, oh, that's a different reality than mine. Maybe I need to begin to change mine. Yeah. So experience, that's it. And then, of course, just being out in creation, right? I mean, that's our number one teacher. We go out, we watch the birds, we listen to them, we watch the trees. The trees give us those pheromones that make us feel good, and we watch the leaves and what happens, and there's just so much to learn there. Our number one teacher, and so separating ourselves is part of the evidence of the dualism, and being out there. Now, I cheat. I'm a farmer, right? So I have to be out there, right? So we're out there and we're digging in the dirt and we're watching the worms and the other things and figuring out, well, what is this and how's the soil and how's the biome and all those kinds of things. And so we're always thinking about these things. But most people, they only do this maybe like when they're walking from their home to their car or from their car to their work, or and we need to make nature more natural a part of our lives.
Yeah. And even when we're walking from our car to our work, the sky is above us, the clouds are above us. There is some part of the natural world to see. So
yeah, I always tell people, even if you're in the Bronx, like our friend said, wherever you are, even if it's all covered with cement, there's an ecosystem there, right? And the question is, what can I do to help the ecosystem wherever I am?
yeah. So I'm excited about your book, How Western Christianity Got It Wrong. And in Third Act Faith, many of us are grounded or grew up in a Christian tradition. And I'm wondering if there is one, I mean, there are probably many, but if there is an aspect of how Western Christianity got it wrong that you think is relevant to how we approach our role as sacred activists and that maybe we need to unlearn.
Well, maybe understanding story better. So we all fall, we live by our myths, right? We all fall prey to the myths, the American myth. There's the American myth that says, we all are equal and we all have opportunities the same. And, we just, we all can pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps and make it. And, that's, if you've been living that, then it's easy to understand that's your reality, right? But there's a whole lot of people who haven't been living that. And who've been trying and who've been failing and who've had it harder because they couldn't make that myth happen for themselves. And so maybe ask ourselves, like, when we're being activists, what's our story?
Mm.
What's the meta narrative? What's the story behind the story of why am I out there? Why am I out there with other people? Does it matter that I'm out there with other people? Are we actually doing something together, or are we just a bunch of individuals doing something that looks like it's together? And I think those are the temptations of the American lifestyle. We're the most individualistic country probably on the face of the earth in all of human history. And so to look at the American myth that we've all, taken in, and to look at, like, my social interactions, what's happening? I mean, our friendships. I was just having coffee with a guy the other day. He's going back to England. He's from England. He's been here for I think 7 years, and he said, I just came over to make friends, and I went to all these places, churches, hung around with anarchists, hung around with other people where I thought these were groups. And he said, but I realized these were all just a bunch of individuals who really didn't understand what it means to make community and be together. And so I think that is a real challenge for all of us now. It's a difficult thing. It takes vulnerability, right? Which takes courage. When I taught professionally for 15 years, and my colleagues would all say, you have to move at the speed of trust, which is, a lot of people say that, and I would tell my students, if we move at the speed of trust, we will never become a community this semester. We have to move at the speed of courage. And it takes courage to be vulnerable. It takes courage to say, I'm a lonely person. I need you. It takes courage for us to have the kind of vulnerability that is willing to open up in front of others. And that's when others begin to open up to us. And a lot of us have been hurt. We don't do it, right? But this is how we begin to stop being those individuals and start being more together, right? So maybe think about, like, what's the story? Am I out there? Am I hearkening back to the Tea Party? I'm talking about the old Tea Party, not the new. Am I trying to make literally, go back to some kind of independence that wasn't really healthy? That didn't give us what we needed. So we have to discover a new way of living, a new way of living together.
That's really beautiful. I want to remind folks to put any questions you might have for Randy in the chat. In a few minutes, we'll open it up for those questions. Randy, I love that you raised the point about moving at the speed of courage. It reminds me of one of your other Substack posts where you wrote that the water we swim in is empire consciousness, that a way of thinking that is so pervasive that we mistake it for reality itself. It operates on a simple logic: hierarchy, transactions, speed, and accumulation. More is better, faster is better, power over others is how you survive. So given particularly the faster is better part, I wanted to ask about how do we meet what at least feels like the urgency of this moment on climate, on democracy, without further embedding the faster is better mindset.
Yeah. So, I've been asked to speak at a church this Sunday, right? I don't speak at a lot of churches, but this church we have good friends there, and they ask us, and I watched some of their sermons and how they do it, and it's very propositional, which we think is efficient, right? I mean, I have a Master of Divinity before I got my PhD, and back then they taught us 3 points in a poem, right? That's how you do a sermon, and if you can alliterate them, even better, right? So, but nobody remembers those points, but they do remember the story you told afterwards, or they do remember the children's story that came before. And I noticed that all along, and I realized like people can't find themselves in propositions. People discover themselves and people they know and people they've been in story. And so I think we have to begin to story one another a lot more than we do. And when we talk to each other and communicate, we need to begin to story. And that's how in our cultures, these stories are passed down for thousands and thousands of years. My wife and I had a very sacred experience. We also have a cultural consulting company called show-key.com, Show-key Cultural Consultants. And we were doing a job up in Lakota country, and we were in Grand Rapids this summer. And we, for 3 days, listened to Lakota elders tell stories. And some of these stories were passed down for who knows how many hundreds and hundreds of years. It was one of the most sacred experiences we've ever had. And I realized there is so much there. There's a lifetime of learning there in those 3 days, just with all those stories. And because that's really how we learn. We find ourselves, we find even like the trickster stories, that tell us like what not to do, But yeah, so what seems efficient is built on this faster, better thing. Is not really more efficient. It's less efficient. It just seems more efficient. And yeah, I guess somebody, who was it that talked about the 3-mile-an-hour God? But yeah, that's the speed of relationships. That's the speed of really getting something done. Consensus building takes time. It's a whole lot easier to have a direct executive director who says, here's what we're going to do. What do you guys think of it? Than saying, hey, we all, especially those who have suffered from whatever injustice that we're looking at, they need to be the loudest voices at the table, right? The most powerful voices. But we all have something to contribute, and only together through consensus can we actually build something that will last. Doesn't seem efficient, but it is long lasting.
Thank you. And when you talk about stories, it's just one thing that comes to mind is how quickly after the murders of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, the internet wanted the stories of their lives, that wanted to fill in their lives with story. And I think it speaks a little bit to what you're talking about.
Yeah, and
yeah.
the evil came in and said, let's create a different story quick.
Right.
And people believe that story. Yeah.
That's right. I have one last question before we open it to questions from others. Third act is composed of people in our third act of life, so 60s and above. And I'm wondering what wisdom or advice an Indigenous worldview offers people in our third act in particular who want to contribute to easing the suffering of the world.
Yeah. So one of the questions I find myself asking myself a lot, and there's a lot of people who are a lot more reflective, self-reflective than I am, I think. Um, but uh, but I am asking myself a lot and reflecting on this question is what kind of an elder do I want to be? Um, I've known lots of elders, incredible people, people who were so tolerant it was almost to a fault. People whose wisdom just exuded out of them by just saying a few words. People who didn't need the spotlight to make something happen. And I've known people who are just older people, right? So we have a saying in Indian country, we say there's elders and there's old people. Um, and so I think asking ourselves what kind of elders we want to be. Do we want to be those ones who are seen as people who others, especially young people, can come to and ask things honestly, or we just want to be old people?
As someone said, you can only be young once, but you can be immature forever. But I think you're right, and I really hear a resonance too between that desire to be elders and the desire to slow down and the desire to emphasize story. Those seem like things that elders can offer as well.
Yeah. And we can't be afraid of our own stories,
Mm,
I mean, a lot of times we're just full of those stories, but a lot of them just stayed tucked in, and it's time to bring them out and take them for a drive and
mm,
see how they go over.
right. Well, Ace, do you want to pull out some questions from the chat?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm ready, and I'm thrilled to say there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat for you, Randy. Some really good questions. So I'll do my best to get to most of them if I can in the time we have. The first one comes from Barbara and Dave. It's two questions, but I guess you can answer one not so quickly. It's a big question, but I think the second one they were asking seems to be the one they want to ask. But the first one is, how do you see the urgency of global warming? And I think Martin mentioned something like that. It reminded me, of course, of Martin Luther King, the urgency of now, right? So, how do you see the urgency of global warming in how you're living your values, life, perspective?
Well, when we first started Eloheh, we called it Eloheh Village for Leadership Development. And that was in 2004. But when we restarted a little bit later, we changed the name to Eloheh Indigenous Center for Earth Justice because we realized that this is going to have to be our focus. I mean, it wasn't not our focus before; it was always our focus, but this needs to be our main focus. So I think that's pretty urgent. Yeah, I'm I think the planet's going to be okay. It's just whether we're going to be here to enjoy it. And if we are, how hard of a life do we want to live to enjoy it? And I'm really encouraged. People always ask me, well, what do you see as hope, for the planet? And I always say, you have to watch a documentary. It was narrated by Sir, is it David Attenborough or Richard Attenborough? Yeah.
Richard, I
And it's
think.
called, yeah, Richard Attenborough, the Year the Earth Changed. Have you seen that? It was lots of filming that was done during the first year of COVID. And oh my gosh, the animals, the birds, the plants, everything that came back without humans bothering them. And I walked away from that just extremely hopeful. And every now and then I get it out and I watch it because when I'm getting a little depressed about things, because I realize that if we can just move a little bit, the earth takes that little bit that we do, the planet, what I call the whole community of creation, and it doubles our efforts, and it comes back. So creation is made to come back, um, and so if we can just begin to do even small amounts, I'm hopeful that things will change. Now, we've had a real
Wonderful,
setback, yeah, but there's
wonderful
lots to do.
image. It's a wonderful image of creation coming out, popping up. I love it. So the same folks, Barbara and Dave, their second question, which is really very different, but I think worth asking. And then there's a whole bunch that I'm going to weave together for you after that from some of these other comments. But their second question is, please speak to the sacrifices we're asking of indigenous folks in order to mine transition minerals. Any thoughts on that?
This is so it's always been the same strategy for the United States and corporate America, which are often the same thing, to divide and conquer. So that's how they come in. They work on certain families long enough to where they divide the tribes, and they can come in then and begin to drill for minerals or other kinds of things. But even now it's become more of a force thing, even then they're not even taking the time to do that. But yeah, that is extreme sacrifice that our people aren't willing to make. I just saw a woman from Greenland saying this is not the sacrifice we're willing to make, indigenous people there. None of us should be willing to make that sacrifice, indigenous or not. So there are, things that have to be done right now that kind of keep the world going, but we can always continue to find better ways. And so I'm like, let's lose the extraction mentality, and begin to realize this is our relative, and you wouldn't do this to your relative. You wouldn't, continually take from your own mother until she can't give anymore. So we begin to look at things that way, and I think things will change.
That's a really wonderful way of thinking of. I like the metaphor of that. Whether or not you're thinking of it as a metaphor, probably not, but family, relative, sisters, who we care so much about in relationship to. I think that's wonderful. Not sure, how we're going to get to those extractors to change their viewpoint fast enough, but I think that's a goal for us all as we work on this. So here's the thing. When you were talking about, I think almost at the beginning of your comments, you talked about the wholeness that comes from the perspective that you live. And actually, I was just in New Zealand and I met with a wonderful Maori woman who said to me, the sky, the earth, me. Right. I said, tell me a little bit about how you think. She said, the sky, the earth, me. And I think that's what you were trying to convey to us at the beginning. And I'm Jewish, and we have a prayer that we say for many, many things, including you're supposed to say it at night. You're supposed to say it before you die. It's the Shema. It's called listen. And it ends with echad, one, the thinking of God as one. And so when I was listening to you and you were talking about wholeness, that's what popped into my mind, that Judaism, why it might be very different than what you're trying to convey to us, it does at its root, at its core, is this notion of wholeness. And that leads me to this question that Deborah has in the chat. Are you finding ways to make connections across faith traditions with Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, and with the spiritual but not religious folks? And what would that look like from your view of it?
Well, okay. My wife would hate that I'm doing this because she thinks that it's not exercising humility, but you probably can't see this. It's hard to see, but it's the Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, which is an interfaith group. And she and I were presented in 2021 the Ecumenist of the Year award. So it was the first time ever given to a couple. And I just set this down in case you asked me about this because it's something I'm very proud of. Um, I have always worked with all kinds of people from, I said, I used to say it this way, Native Americans aren't picky. We'll hang out with anyone who will tolerate us. So I've spoken in Jewish synagogues. I've have great friends, been to the Good Water for my sick friends. And you know, when I was teaching world religions, we would go visit all these places. But we had a group in Oregon called the Common Table, and it sort of fell apart. And it fell apart because really the person who was the best organizer left. But we would all come together and just, at first was a thing of like, let's find out what all we have in common, which is always the interfaith thing, right? It's like, and my wife and I just said, we're just going to call bull on all this. And we stood up in the meeting and says, like we're all very important people, right? We have, three different rabbis and, the imam, and we have the head of the Presbyterians, and we have the Catholic Archdiocese, and everybody's here. You're all very important people. But what if we just forgot all that and said, let's actually be vulnerable and get to know one another? And, it turned out to be just the most beautiful couple years together. It was incredible. And I'm so sad it fell apart. But you know what? I still had our mailing list. And my wife and I are fighting right now for some, we feel like we're not being able to practice our religion on our own property. And we're appealing to the county on the Religious Liberty Act. And I wrote and just let them all know. And I got at least 20 people from that group, rabbis, pastors, etc., who are all going to show up in the meeting and testify because we built those relationships. And so this is so important. Not that we just hang out together, not that we just tolerate each other, but that we actually celebrate the differences.
Yeah, that's great. That's beautiful.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Ace?
Yes.
So the question to you, Randy, was, are you finding ways to make these connections across faith traditions? And my question, as we're a group that's mostly white people, if we are wanting to make those connections with Indigenous folks, is there advice you have for us as we're trying to reach across those divides?
Yeah. One of the things, I have this whole teaching that I do called the reconciliation paradigm. And I talk about hiring cultural guides and pay them well, because most people have not paid Native people well in the past. And as a guide to get you into the community and you understand about it, then you make your friends or whatever. But yeah, you need a guide to come into the Native community, probably just like a lot of different communities. You need someone who knows how to live in both worlds and is connected in both worlds and can help you along and educate you. And that's how we build allies, right? But but to just ask Native people, say, hey, can you come educate us? That's sort of like, yeah, but that's not really my job, right? Is because I'm not the one that created the education system that left us out of everything, and now I have to fill that gap. So we're really talking about a re-education for to understand Native people, and you ought to just like say, hey, if we want help, we're going to have to find some people and honor them with paying them or whatever it ends up being. And some people will say, oh, I don't need anything or whatever, but honor them anyway.
Thank you. And, I just want to say that for me, that advice, which I heard years ago, landed initially sort of uncomfortable. Wait, pay this person, I'm trying to make a connection. But what I have found is that it really frees up the relationship, because it helps me not to be worrying so much. Am I taking advantage? Am I appropriating? Am I getting the right advice? It's really helpful. So I appreciate that advice.
Okay, here we go. The next one from I hope I don't mispronounce your name. Ishrari Salohihub. I'm sorry for the last name, but it's a great question. What wisdom about community do you have for an introvert?
I'm an introvert. My wife is an introvert. In fact, 3 of my 4 kids are introverts. I'm sorry, 2 of 4, I guess we'd say. Um, we're an introverted family by and large. We get, when we go places, or when we used to go together, we would watch the other 2 go out and do stuff, and we'd all sit back. And I'm the kind of guy who goes, if I go to, I hate social events because I cannot do the thing where you go around and talk to people and talk superficial. That's not me. So I will try to sit in a corner and maybe find one person or 2 people that I can talk to for a while and get to know, right? So you're talking to an introvert, and we just also have to be vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you have to go around like a social butterfly and meet everybody, but you can just find a few people that you can have a meaningful conversation with.
That great advice. I hope that helps. Ishrari. We have a lot more and we're running out of time. So I don't know what to do about this. Kathleen, help. We're about to want
Well,
to.
we have time for at least one more, I think, Ace, if you
But
want
we
to.
have like 4 really great questions out there, but we'll keep going. You've really triggered something, Randy, and people, which I think is wonderful. Here's the next one. Okay, I'm going to give 2 more. Okay, so
Okay, but just to let you know, I don't have to go, but maybe other people do. I don't know.
yeah, somebody with the power to be tell us if we can keep going after this. But here's the question from Kolia. How was Jesus indigenous? Are there other people in our Christian heritage, like the mystics, whom we might also learn qualities of being indigenous, exemplifying creation as sacred? So
So I'm
again,
not going to answer.
in that tradition.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer the mystics questions because that's a whole nother thing. You're asking really 2 questions here.
Mm,
Jesus is this brown, tribal, Jewish, indigenous Palestinian boy, right? Who is brought up knowing his tribe, brought up in around his family, brought up in a village with family. He lives an indigenous lifestyle, and the fact that he is pre-colonial also sort of adds to his indigeneity. So he's not taken in by empire like the Greeks are,
that's
right?
right. Yeah.
So he's thinking as an indigenous person. He's
Yeah.
connected to the land. Like the thing that I love the most about reading about Jesus is how he loves the land, the trees, the birds, the wind, the sea, that's all he talks about is creation, right? He doesn't talk about, Roman chariots or crossbows or sandals or waterways or, he's around all that. And you think that this young brown boy from Nazareth would be impressed with all that, but that's not what he talks about.
Yeah.
So,
You're reminding me, I think what you're doing with that is trying to also share with us. There was a time in all of our different religions where we were much more aware of and cognizant of the earth and of the trees and of the birds. Judaism also, the prophets, they used trees as their favorite metaphor to talk about continuity and they knew those trees. That was the point, right? They studied those trees. They could use them as metaphor because they knew them, how they grew, their root systems, etc. So this is the last question that we will do today, but we'll keep that chat for the future. I think we might have to invite you back. This one is from Dan Quinlan, and he has given us a couple of them. And Dan, I'd love to share all of them, but this is the one that we'll end with. The move at the speed of courage is a lovely and powerful idea. Who do you see living that today, especially people who we might be able to point to as we talk about that wonderful phrase, the move at the speed of courage?
yeah.
So
Well,
some
I think
teachers, I guess, for
yeah,
us.
yeah, just even in the last 50 years, we can look back in all the movements and all the different things that were happening. Cesar Chavez, Martin Luther King Jr., Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, just whatever. They were all moving at the speed of courage, right? Um, and I think people like Brother Cornell West. I just saw him come out with something real courageous a couple days ago. Um, I think, forgive my politics, AOC. I think she's addressing these things as they come out, whether it be popular or not. Um, I guess we can look at just about almost anywhere.
Who is the person
Just
you just said? I was looking at the question, so I didn't hear who you mentioned just then.
AOC
Oh, okay, yeah.
from your hometown.
From my hometown, that's right. I
Yeah.
don't call it my hometown, trust me, but yeah, from where I live. Okay, I just got the green light to be able to ask you a few more questions. So is that I got it from Kathleen, but Martin, did you want to say something about that too? Okay, I hope you're all agreeing to this. We have this wonderful opportunity to learn from Randy. So, Daniel Carlson, I'm very drawn to appreciatively relating to other species. So this is a bit of a challenge or more of an inquiry for you. I'm really appreciatively relating to other species as kin. That metaphor that I really think it's not metaphor. I don't want to say that. I don't want to distance it from what you're trying to explain to us. It's real. However, this then feels a little disingenuous when I eat, build, read. I'd be grateful to learn how you think, feel, act within what seems to Daniel as a conundrum.
Yeah. So we can't live without killing. When you walk, you're walking on, every handful of dirt, has about 4 billion microbes in it. And so you're killing them when you walk. This is part of the way creation works. This is part of the circle. But to be respectful when you walk, to be grateful when you eat, and we have lots of native stories that tell us why we need to be grateful whenever we pick something. We put tobacco down. We thank the plant. When my wife and I, we harvest plants. We save the seeds. We pray over the seeds. We have a seed planting blessing festival in the spring. We pray over them. We pray over them as we plant them. As we weed, we talk to them. When we harvest, we say thank you. This is just part of, so we don't take these things for advantage of them, right? So you're not going to be able to exist in this world without doing harm. But the idea is don't do harm unnecessarily and make sure that you're grateful for everything that gives us life so that you can be here.
Would you mind sharing with us as an example of a prayer you might say over a seed, a plant?
We have songs that we sing when it's our seed planting time. And so I'm not going to sing one of those songs now, but that would be the prayer would be a song. Yeah.
One could always ask, right? So,
Yeah.
okay. Daniel then said, "Thank you, Randy," the same man who asked you that, but also had up above, he quoted when you said God walks 3 miles. So he got the whole quote. God walks 3 miles an hour, the speed of love. And then gave the name of the person who I'd probably mispronounce, but Kosuke Koyama.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's floated around and attributed to a number of different people by now, but yeah.
That's beautiful to think the speed of love. Dan Quinlan has another question. This one I'm repeating, and then I'll look for somebody who hasn't asked yet. But this one, I think we'll all enjoy your answer. Have you had the experience of a deep vision or dream that stuck with you and altered everything going forward? And the second part of that is, can we modern people still have that experience? Is there a way we might be able to better open ourselves up to that experience?
Well, I'm a dreamer. I have sacred dreams, and I don't know why. I don't know that I cultivated something to make them happen. The dream that I actually talked about in 1999 of the vision of Eloheh was a very sacred dream that changed our life for the rest of our lives, because we followed the dream, and we followed it with a great deal of difficulty and pressure against us, in a number of different places, and a lot of disappointment, a lot of hurt. But if it's the dream that's worth following, then you follow it, you know. Yeah.
How did you deal with the hurt and the disappointment and the obstruction?
Well, I think that's something that takes a while, when it's that, like we had literally neighbors shooting a machine gun on our property line, threatening to beat our kids up, and we've had phone calls threatening our lives and to kill my family. We've been followed out in, and this is not just one place, this is numerous places. Um, uh, People in pickup trucks following us in the dark out in the country, with their lights off. I've been fired from a job because I kept bringing up the systemic racism. Um, I've been threatened to be fired. And yeah, it's just a whole lot of things that will come against you when you um, are willing to speak truth, um, and live a life of integrity. And I guess that's what I've tried to do. Um, and I think it's cost my family a lot. So sometimes I do think, do I regret these things? I do, in a sense that it caused harm to my family. But I still think it was the right thing to do. And sometimes when I was younger, I was more impetuous. I didn't think through things. We all probably been there, right? Um, so yeah, how do I deal with them? I realize that I'm just a human being, and that we're all just human beings, and that we're sort of pitiful people, and that we're all going to make mistakes, and we're all going to learn from our mistakes. And I think the saddest thing are people who don't learn from their mistakes.
Mm-hmm. So your home, Eloheh or
Good.
A?
No, you
Okay.
got it. Eloheh.
Eloheh. Okay, you say it so easily. You've said it a few times, I think. So in Hebrew, Elohai, right, is the name of God. I don't know if you know that or not, but when I
Yeah,
first
I
heard
know.
about you, I thought, wait, that's Eloheh. So when you said it's a sacred dream, there must be Eloheh must have been part of Eloha somehow in that dream
Well, it's
across.
a very ancient word,
Yeah.
that we've used in our Cherokee language for who knows how many tens of thousands of years. And if you think about it, I have a lot of friends from all around the world, indigenous people, and there's a lot of these sort of I don't know what you call that part of speech, but where it's a breath.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you were just in New Zealand, and they
Yeah.
practice hungi,
Yeah.
and it's a
Yeah.
kihora
Yeah.
and aloha.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of these words, sacred
Right.
words, that sort of kind of reminiscent of each other.
Yeah, I mean, in my tradition, we have Nishmat Kol Hai, the breath of all living, and we're supposed to
Right.
take a deep, deep breath when we say that out loud in our prayer service. So for me, the imagination would be back then, in those thousands of years ago, a kind of circulation of different ideas and different names, language to each other, sharing like that. I think that would be so wonderful. The primordial that brought us all here. Oh, you're inspiring me. I'm talking too much, but one last question, I believe, and then we'll have to put it together. Okay, this is from Kathleen, I think. So when a place seems to have a hold of you, that could be taken as a sign that the place needs, wants, accepts you there.
Maybe.
Beautiful, beautiful pick question,
Yeah.
Kathleen.
I don't have all the answers for all these questions, but I only can tell you what I know. But there are special places that sort of have grabbed me, um, and uh, and it's hard to let go of those if I can't live there, right? So there, I have a few places around the country where I feel especially drawn to, and I hope to go back and visit those places.
I think you had a great deal to answer beautifully. Thank you. Should we turn it over to
Yeah, I
Martin?
think yeah. Thank you so much, Randy. I actually have one more question because we have just a little more time, and I'm going to take interviewer's prerogative, even though we didn't ask you if you could answer questions for this long. So I really appreciate it.
Okay.
This is a little off topic, but when I was listening to your wonderful conversation with Deborah on the Refugia podcast, you said something in passing that I'd really love to have you speak to a little bit. You said that the most overriding characteristic of who Creator is Creator's vulnerability. Could you say something about Creator's vulnerability?
Right. Well, that's sort of in my almost 70 years. I'll be 70 in July. That's sort of my conclusion is the number one characteristic of creator is vulnerability. Um, and I think that's sort of the overriding characteristic, and a whole lot of everything else has been made from bad theology. Um, but you think about vulnerability. If I'm married. I have a wonderful wife, and I can't imagine what it'd be like these last 36 years if I hadn't been vulnerable. Would that really be love, or would that be something else? And so, if, as they say, God is love, then that means God must be the most vulnerable uh, uh, existence there is. And so, this is how, for us, being a human being is realizing our vulnerability. I mean, we're really just, there's a wonderful children's book that talks about how vulnerable humans are compared to all the other animals and things. Turtles have shells and buffaloes have horn, thick skin. But humans are just these pitiful, vulnerable people. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. When we are the most human, I think that by becoming vulnerable, we become the most human. When we're superficial, not caring, etc., that's when we're the least human that we can be. And so to be just a simple human being is my highest spirituality. And that means that I'm full of vulnerability and taking chances and expressing myself in ways that might actually even help other people to open up. So.
I'm reminded of, I was just reading a discussion of the book of Isaiah and about how the prophet uses the metaphor of the beloved creating a vineyard, the beloved being God and the vineyard being God's people, and that God put all this effort into preparing the soil and taking care of the vines for years to try to get them to produce, and then they didn't. The people did not live up to God's hope, and God says, "What did I do wrong?" This breaking of the Creator's heart, which feels like the kind of vulnerability you're talking about.
Yeah. And I noticed somebody here, they mentioned creation and vulnerability. And you know, if you've ever been out in the middle of a snowstorm, or you've been in, Western in Michigan, I've been in, snowstorms where I wasn't sure if I was going to make it out. I've been in Colorado and the Oklahoma Panhandle in lightning storms where I was afraid for my life. I mean, I've been, too far from shore and wonder if I could swim back. Creation will teach us vulnerability, right? That we're just human beings.
Absolutely. I spent 3 weeks on the Colorado River this summer, and boy, vulnerability for sure. Well, thank you so much, Randy. I really appreciate this conversation. It's been beautiful. I'm after just a few announcements, I'm going to ask you to introduce our closing song, just say a few words about it. But
Okay.
I want to let folks know, first of all, I'm going to put in the chat some links to your center, Eloheh, and to your website, and then a link to spiritual resources that Third Act Faith has put together. I also want to remind folks that the next guest in this series will be having a conversation with Bishop Marion Buddy. And that'll be on Tuesday, February 24th at 4 Pacific time and 7 Eastern. And so you can, Kathleen has put that link to the registration page, and be sure to register and you'll get a reminder. And then the last announcement is hopefully all of you saw a survey that we sent around. We really want to know how best to meet the needs and desires of the people who are part of Third Act Faith. So we're going to put the link again. It's already in the chat again. And we're going to hold the survey open until the end of the day tomorrow, and really encourage folks to fill it out if you haven't. It doesn't take very long. And if you haven't, maybe before you even get off your computer after this call, you can just go to that link and complete the survey. So again, thank you so much, Randy. It's been really nice to hear from you. And so when we asked you for a song that we might use to close, you suggested one, and I wonder if you might say a little about why you suggested this song.
Yeah. So I said, "Do you want an Indian song?" And he said, "Yeah, that might be nice." And I said, "Well, how about the Native American National Anthem?" And Martin didn't know what that was, and so I said, "Well, let me play it for you or show you it." And so we have to go way back. You'd have to be old, like some of us are, to remember something that happened back in 1973 or four. I can't remember if it was, but you remember the old days when TV used to cut off at midnight, and it would just be and usually they would have the Indian with the headdress on and the little thing, but then they started running things after that, and one of them was called the Midnight Special, and that would, us high schoolers, we would set up and watch these concerts at midnight, and it was the thrill of my life when I saw the first Native American group on television, and it became a top, I don't know if it's top 10 hit or what it was, but and this has sort of become the sort of like I guess you call it the impromptu Native North American anthem. And so I just thought we would end with a little bit of levity, I guess you could call it. So yeah.
And it's a great song on top of it all. So
yeah, so apologies for the technical difficulties with our opening number. I think I have this one ready to go. If you can't hear it or see it, please someone say something, because I can't see the chat once I share my screen. So here we go.
Such a great song. Thank you for taking us down that memory lane and also for educating. I certainly when I was listening to it when I was young did not know that it was a native group. So
Yeah.
really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone.